Bad Bunny kicked off a historic Super Bowl halftime show last night. The first to feature a headliner performing entirely in the Spanish language. So, huge moment for Latin Americans and Puerto Ricans especially. Rosa, Clemente, and Reanna Cruz are a couple of the Boricuas who were watching last night's historic performance, and they're here to unpack it with me now. Welcome to Commotion, y'all.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Look, we're going to get into the politics around Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl in a bit. But the first thing I want to do is let's actually listen to some of his performance. That's Bad Bunny performing Titi Me Pregunto, my son's favorite track from Bad Bunny, actually. So Rosa, I mean, look, just from a strictly artistic perspective, how did you feel about Bad Bunny's performance last night?
I mean, it was incredible. What's being done with cameras and younger visual artists and the kind of whole commotion of it is very Boricua. For a lot of people, they're like, it was too much stimulation. And then Boricuas would be like, no, we need it more. I mean, number 2 all time, no one will ever top Prince for me, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the man could have died playing the guitar when he started singing Purple Rain. If anybody's watching is old enough, but on point, production, beautiful. And then him opening up with showing enslaved Africans in the sugarcane, which nobody, if you don't understand, Black people were dispersed throughout this whole world, you wouldn't have understand that opening. So it was beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I at that moment and then going right to the Parawa stand, that got me. That was just like, oh, it's getting real now, right? Reanna, look, you got to watch Bad Bunny's historic Puerto Rican residency, right? So talk to me about like how this performance compares to that.
Well, when I saw the residency, one thing that caught me immediately was the size and scope of the show and staging of it all. Like when I was seeing it at El Choli, like he had a mountain in the arena, like he created this massive greenery. Really no other way to describe it other than like a mountain in the middle of the floor, and then he had the casita, and so my expectations were high for the show because I saw his stage presence, I saw the way that he jumped through all of these different genres in the same context. Like he did the reggaeton bit on the casita, he did the jibaro bit, like there was so much happening, and so my expectations were so high and he delivered. Like the man knows how to craft a show.
And look, I mean, there were so many huge moments in last night's performance that people are talking about, right? I mean, we got, even like the moments where Ricky Martin and Lady Gaga are performing, or like the cameos from Bad Bunny and Karol G, Cardi B, Jessica Alba in the mix. But here's maybe one of the biggest moments that got people talking from last night's show.
God bless America. Sea Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, México, Cuba, República Dominicana, Jamaica, Haití, las Antillas, United States, Canadá, and my motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico.
So there you had Bad Bunny starting things off by saying, God bless America, which is, of course, one of those iconic patriotic phrases in the U.S. lexicon. But then he's repurposing it to be inclusive of the Americas in their entirety, Canada included. And the whole time he was carrying a football that had written on it, Together We Are America. Rosa, I mean, of course, that was a huge moment. Are there any other moments that or themes from last night's performance that really resonated with you?
I don't refer to myself as an American because that's been imposed on us, but I understand the international significance of people understanding it is the Americas and the United States is part of that. I think the ending for me, as someone that works very, very hard on bridging Afro-Black Boricuas to our struggle with African American citizens in this country, to we're both American citizens treated as second class. But him bringing in the Caribbean, especially as someone who was born and raised in the Bronx around Caribbean people, the amount of people that weren't Boricua last night, like, wait, was that the TNT flag? Was that Barbados? Was that Jamaica? Was that, I was like, it was all of it. It was literally Trump's nightmare and the entire right wing having a freaking meltdown. And because of the isolationist place that this megalomaniac called the president puts us in peril every day, I thought to me that was very, very much political and super intentional, and I loved it. I really did.
Well, we got to say, like, Rosa, I mean, going into this, you didn't think that Bad Bunny should have performed at the Super Bowl last night. You actually wrote a think piece on this. Can you explain why you felt that way?
Because of ICE, because he took a stand by doing his residency in Puerto Rico because of that, because ICE said they would be out there. But what I did find out that nobody's talking about, there were over 1,000 people there that they basically created a human chain of activists to keep ICE out. And those pictures are starting to come out, right? So that to me was like, at the end of the day, I still don't think he should have performed, Like, I mean, I'm not going to change my politic because it was an incredible performance. And I don't take away that he might have bring more people into trying to understand Puerto Ricans, but I'm a person that I don't really want white America or white folks to understand me as a Boricua. I know who I am, But with that said, it happened. And as always, activists and organizers showed up to make sure that no matter what, that moment of joy that people were having was not marred by ICE. And they did that. Not the police, not the FBI, none of the agencies. The people of Santa Clara did that.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you right, like, you appreciated this performance, but didn't really change how you felt about, or that initial stand that you took on whether he should perform or not.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I was worried about is all I've heard in the last 2 weeks is Puerto Rico is part of America. Puerto Rico is it? No, we're not. And we're not a territory. We're a colony, 128 years of colonization. And I think a lot of American journalists, including Black journalists, that's why I look this tired. Every Black journalist I knew, I was like, you need to take that down. Okay, like, let's stop pretending this is a mutual relationship based on humanity. This is an extractive relationship. And in a way, the Bad Bunny performance at the end of the day is about business. Jay-Z is not dumb. Lady Gaga, that was a travesty. I don't even know why did that happen? But Goodell said, Roger Goodell, is we want to expand our footprint in Latin America. And Bad Bunny has helped to do that, So the politics for me, no, I don't have loyalty to anybody but the people of Puerto Rico, and to see in my lifetime that Puerto Rico will be free. And I think Bad Bunny has brought now a whole new generation into that discussion, because we very well know he does not want Puerto Rico to be a state. Hopefully soon we can have him say, yo soy independista y Puerto Rico libre ahora mismo.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's interesting to me because it's like, it sounds like, you're saying like this is, I mean, it still remains an extractive relationship, and maybe there's degrees to whether the kind of reverse colonialism of him performing there even works. Reanna, I want to bring you into this because, like, look, I mean, where do you stand in terms of Bad Bunny? I mean, he did take the stand, as Rosa said, the stand where he wasn't going to tour in the U.S. So he explained that position was based out of fear of American immigration policies and how ICE might target the fans at his concerts on U.S. soil. But then here he is performing at the Super Bowl. So what do you make of that?
I mean, when he initially announced the show, I was kind of two mindsets, one of which is it's hard to square away the historically racist institution of the NFL and what they represent with Bad Bunny's politics. And that brought me a lot of pause, I think, on initial announcement. And the other camp of thinking that I found myself in was that the halftime show, like, I'm a pop critic, I'm a pop historian, like the halftime show is like 15 minutes of excess. It's like the state of popular music in the country distilled to a quarter of an hour, you know? And so I love the showmanship. I love the whole rigmarole of it, you know? And so I was very excited in that regard, but it's hard to square away the two ideas in the
Mm-hmm.
same. You know, I struggle with the concept of Bad Bunny putting out a record that's so explicitly about like decolonizing your mind and then turning around and performing for the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a weird thing to contend with for me. However, I will say that I think after watching the halftime show, it's clear what his ethos was, and it's kind of positioning joy as an active act of protest,
Mm-hmm.
which I think now, considering the state of the Latino condition in America, is necessary.
Right.
And I would say this, I think this is probably went over a lot of people's heads. Apagón,
Mm-hmm.
right? When he climbed those utility poles is to represent what's been going on in Puerto Rico, but especially after Hurricane Maria, because I went there 10 days after it and stayed for 2 weeks with a group of a team of reporters who broke the story of how many people died. But directly speaking to the Pagón, right? Like here we are, these American citizens with a crumbling infrastructure. And at the end of the day, much like how hip hop started off in the Bronx with two turntables and a plug-in,
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens in Puerto Rico. That's what's happening in Gaza,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like people are figuring out how are we going to have lights and what does it mean for us diasporas, particularly in the United States, knowing that every day the lights may go off in Puerto Rico and that our people will be put in jeopardy, but also that our elders will be put in jeopardy because of the lack of electricity. So to me, him climbing was kind of like old school Bronx Puerto Rican hip hop in the most beautiful way that I think a lot of people might not have picked up on that unless you're a Boricua.
I think, I mean, that you're naming my favorite section of the show. I mean, following up after Ricky Martin performed that song about don't let what happened to Puerto Rico, don't let what happened to Hawaii happen to Puerto Rico. And then you got just the way that segment where he's climbing the electrical pole was delivered and all the lights in the audience was flickering, speaking to these blackouts throughout Puerto Rico and the gentrification that's behind all of that. Absolutely my favorite part of the show. And look, you know, I do want to for a second set aside kind of the politics of where we stand on the politics of Bad Bunny performing at this show, and just where we stand on the Super Bowl itself, and just talk about this moment because, you know, the Super Bowl, we can't deny that this is one of the most coveted platforms, you know, for any musician. And, you know, there's so many iconic, you know, Super Bowl performances, pop culture moments, and controversial moments out of that. So just like, you know, considering the pantheon of Super Bowl performances. Well, Rosa, I'm going to start with you, but you kind of already hinted at it at the beginning. You said this is second to the Prince performance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Prince could have died. Like, he literally played an electric guitar on his own as the rain came down.
Yeah.
You know, but then people say, well, Prince wasn't political. And it was like, well, then you don't understand him or Jehovah's Witnesses or like overtly political. Prince was queer before queer was in our faces. You know what I'm saying? You know, but what I also want to recognize is that he purposely understands that Boricuas, that there are Black Puerto Ricans.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot right now of younger people being like, he wasn't Black enough, and I was like, I get that. But when you look at Bad Bunny, you cannot talk about him understanding race in America. He's born in Puerto Rico. Race plays out very differently on the island.
Mm.
But there's also a new generation that has come up as young Boricuas in Black Lives Matter and especially after Maria, have been acknowledging unapologetically their Blackness. And that was shown on that stage as well, and that it was very intergenerational, which is what we are as a people. So you got the old man playing the dominoes, that way you got the wedding, they actually got married. And then that part where And thank you for your producer for fact checking me because I stayed up all night. But the part where I think all of us were like, wait, is that Leon Ramos?
The little child that he
And-
handed a Grammy to? Yes.
Right. So I just found out. It's him. It's that little boy's representing Bad Bunny when
Mhm.
Bad Bunny was that age with his parents watching the Grammy, right? But I also thought it was significant that a lot of people was like, wait, is that Leon Ramos? Because it also shows, right, again, his intentionality, but doesn't let us forget, and I hope the world doesn't forget, that there are now 3,900 children in ICE detention, and one child captured that. But I think what he did, again, gave it very different ways of looking at it, you know, and both are beautiful, you know, both
Yeah.
are beautiful.
Yeah. Listen, Reanna, I don't want to let this go without getting your take on where this stands, where this ranks for you in terms of Super Bowl performances. So in just 20 seconds, let me know.
Super high. It's near the top of the list. I think there's only a few that can take the crown, and I think over time this will grow on me more and more. I think it's less of a halftime show and more of a statement, largely, and that's where I'd go.
All right. Well, listen, this has been such a fascinating take on such an electric show. So thank you both for being here with me on it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Reanna Cruz is a writer for Vulture and performer of the Switched On Pop podcast. They were in LA. And Rosa Clemente is a community organizer and independent journalist and hip hop activist. She was in Albany, New York. For more coverage of last night's Super Bowl, you can head over to CBC Sports.